All right, for the next step in this build, tonight what I want to get done is I want to get the landing gear put on the fuselage. So I'm pretty sure I am officially done fighting with the flaps on there. I think those are about right now as good as they're going to get. It's kind of hard without the right receiver to get things perfectly set up. So I'm sure I'll have to mess with that later. So the next thing I did was I got the optional spring landing gear for this thing just to hold up a little better because I'm putting the big bush wheels on this. So these were the big bush wheels we opted for. The optional spring gear, one of the things that I noticed about this is that's monocoat over the top of that. So I almost thought they were like a fiberglass or something. So I don't know how that's going to hold up in any of the grass fields or whatever, or transport. I guess time will tell. But I could see that easily getting punctured. But anyway, we're going to get the wings off the bench and hopefully we're going to get this gear going. So time for the time lapse. All right, guys, so now it's time to install the horizontal stabilizer. So what you want to do is you set this thing into place, and I make reference measurements from the edge of the tail inboard to outboard, making sure that they're the same on each side. And then I go from the corners up to the edge of the fuselage to make sure that that distance is the same. If you really wanted to, you can also reference from here out to the wingtips with a string as reference, which I will check that. I usually just use a string and just not even checking numbers, just checking length of the physical string. So we'll be doing that after I epoxy this in. So right now I'm going to take the hot iron and I'm literally going to seal these edges on all the way around because I'm going to cut this section out just inside of that line, being careful not to go too deep into there and actually weaken the horizontal stab. So we're going to cut that, trim that out, 30-minute epoxy, set it into place, give it time to cure, and I will also tape right outside of those lines. So any epoxy that comes through on here does not get on the stabs. So I don't want the epoxy up here, and when I can peel it, then it'll leave a nice clean edge. So time lapse. So what I did here on the horizontal stab installation is I put tape above and below, so that way it traps any of the glue runoff, the epoxy runoff. And then what I'll do is as this dries, starts to dry, I'll peel it up and clean off the one or two little spots. But what this does is it gives you a little fillet right in the inside of here. And then on the other side, I'll go ahead and I'll fill that in with a little bit there of the extra. I'm also going to drill a couple small holes and feed the epoxy from the vertical stabilizer assembly, so that fills in and actually drops down into the inside to really make sure it's secure. But that way it's clean, you can pull the tape and you don't have epoxy everywhere. So my measurement from here to here is exactly the same as here to there, as it is from the edge here, the leading edge of the horizontal stab, to the inboard edge here of the fuselage. So make sure your measurements match, make sure everything's nice and square. That's how you build a nice flying airplane. Next step is going to be installing the vertical stab. So same thing as the horizontal, you're going to lay this thing into place. You're going to make sure that that thing is squared, going right up the, I don't know, nose of it, if you will, that it's centered in the fuselage. And as it's sitting in there, you're going to need to use your square, and you're going to make sure that that thing is sitting as nice as it can be. And you can see that that's a nice 90 right there. So as you go up through, again, I lay tape in here, and I'll do the same thing on the vertical stabilizer as I get it marked off. But I am going to use the tape as a guide, because you're going to have to trim the covering underneath here all the way up. So again, take your heating iron to it first. That's what I use, that heating iron there. You're going to seal off that covering, and then we're going to trim that out in there between the lines. And I'm going to take just a sliver out of that root. Back in here, we're going to fill all of that in as well, so that way it doesn't leave goo all the way up the vertical stabilizer. So here we go, time lapse.